The penthouse was silent. Manhattan was not. But Pietro De Luca didn't hear the city tonight. He heard only one thing, the ticking of the clock that told him she was late. Again. 2:47 a.m. He stood in the dim light of his living room, white shirt unbuttoned at the top, sleeves rolled to his elbows, a glass of whiskey untouched in his hand. The skyline glowed against the floor-to-ceiling windows, but his eyes weren't on the view. They were locked on the elevator doors at the far end of the hall. He shouldn't have cared. He shouldn't have been awake. He shouldn't have been this tense over someone who worked for him. But Ivy Bennett wasn't just someone. She had a laugh that slipped under his skin, a way of looking at him like she wasn't afraid of him at all. A softness he hadn't felt in years. And last night, he had caught her talking with Mason Reed, his capo, his closest man, standing too close to her in the kitchen. Too comfortable. Too easy. Pietro had watched for 5 seconds. It bothered him for hours. He took a breath, jaw tightening. She lived here. She worked here. She was safe because she was under his roof. But lately, she wasn't in his roof. Not at the hours she should be. He had been telling himself for weeks that it wasn't jealousy. Tonight he knew he had been lying. The elevator dinged. Pietro didn't move. He stayed in the shadow between the windows, watching as the door slid open. She stepped out. Ivy Bennett looked like a woman returning from a life he was never invited to. Coat half-buttoned, hair messy from the wind, high heels in her hand, cheeks flushed from cold or excitement. He couldn't tell which. Her eyes met his. She froze. "Crap," she whispered. He stepped out of the darkness slowly, voice deep and low. "Is this your idea of a time to come home?" Her breath caught. "Why are you standing there like a horror movie villain?" "You scared me." "I wasn't hiding," he said. "I was waiting." She blinked. Hard. "You were waiting for me?" "I asked you a question," Pietro replied, ignoring hers. "Do you call this an hour to walk into my house?" "My shift ended early," she said defensively. "I was out with friends. I have a life outside this penthouse, you know." He took a slow step toward her. She instinctively stepped back until her shoulder met the cold elevator frame. "Which friends?" he asked quietly. "Mason Reed." Her eyes faltered for half a second. Half a second too long. Pietro's jaw clenched. "Unbelievable. We work together sometimes." She rushed out. "He comes by the kitchen, we talk. It's called being social." "At 3 a.m.? he asked. "Barefoot?" "My feet hurt," she snapped, lifting the heels. "High heels exist, you know." "And you were dancing?" His voice dropped, sharper. "Yes, Pietro, dancing. Humans do it all the time." "Did he touch you?" She gasped. "I'm sorry, what?" "Mason," he said. "Did he put his hands on you?" "That is none of your business." "So he did." "So you're insane," she shot back. "You sign my paycheck. You don't own my nights." He stepped closer. Too close. Her breath stilled. "You live in my house," he said, "under my protection. And when you walk in at this hour, alone, exhausted, not answering your phone, yes, I care who you were with." She didn't expect that answer. Not from him. "You care," she said softly. He swallowed once. Hard. "I care about security," he corrected. "That's all." "Right." Her voice dropped. "Just your reputation." Something flickered in his eyes. Hurt, frustration, jealousy. She couldn't tell. He lifted a thumb to her lip. "You missed some lipstick," he said quietly. Her breath stopped completely. "It's mine," she whispered. "Not anyone else's." His thumb lingered 1 second too long. "Go to bed, Ivy. No more interrogation. We'll talk in the morning. I don't want more rules." "Then stop making me worry." Her heart tumbled. "You were worried?" she whispered. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. It was written in the way he looked at her. Tired, tense, relieved now that she was in front of him. "Good night," he said softly. "Good night, Pietro," she said, letting his name linger. He inhaled sharply. She walked down the hall barefoot, the softest sound on the marble. He didn't take his eyes off her until her door closed. Only then did he exhale and press a hand to his forehead. This wasn't normal. This wasn't professional. This wasn't safe. He was jealous. He was worried. And worst of all, he was losing the one person who made this penthouse feel less empty. Ivy woke with a knot in her stomach. The memory of Pietro waiting in the dark replayed in her mind. His voice, his stare, the way he said, "You scared me." She tried not to analyze it. She failed. Downstairs, she prepared coffee with trembling hands. The elevator dinged. She froze. Pietro stepped into the kitchen wearing a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled up, hair pushed back from a fresh shower. He looked calm. Too calm. "Morning," she said, handing him a mug. "Morning." Their fingers brushed. Both pretended not to react. Both failed miserably. "We should talk about last night," he said. "No," she said quickly. "I haven't had caffeine yet." He ignored that. "The rules stay." "Rules? I'm not 12. You can't come home at 3 a.m. without telling anyone. You don't own me. I'm not trying to." His eyes softened. "I'm trying to keep you safe." She swallowed hard. Before she could reply, the elevator dinged again. Mason Reed walked in like he owned the place, hair half-tied, wearing jeans and a smirk. "Morning, sunshine," he said to Ivy. Pietro's jaw flexed. "And morning to you too, boss," Mason added. "You look tense." "Leave," Pietro said. Mason bit into an apple, loudly. "No can do." "I need Ivy for a sec." "No, you don't." Mason blinked. "Whoa, possessive much?" Pietro glared. Mason leaned closer to Ivy. "So, tonight, need a ride to—" "Mason," Pietro snapped. "Outside." Mason raised his hands, amused. "Fine, fine. I'll go before you combust." He winked at Ivy and slipped out. Pietro set his mug down too hard. Ivy crossed her arms. What was that? He doesn't know his place. He was being friendly. He was being Mason. She laughed softly. "You're jealous." He looked offended. "I am not." "You kind of are." He took a slow breath, stepped toward her, eyes locked on hers. "Ivy, I didn't sleep last night." Her heartbeat jumped. "Because of you," he said quietly. "Because I didn't know where you were. Because I kept imagining the worst. Because—" He stopped. She waited. He didn't finish. Instead, he said, "Come to my office after breakfast. We're not done." "Oh, joy," she muttered. He almost smiled. Almost. She knocked. "Come in," he said. He wasn't behind his desk like usual. He was standing, hands in his pockets, tension heavy in his shoulders. "I overheard something," he said. "You and Mason?" She groaned. "We were arguing about pastries." "I doubt that." "Pietro, Mason and I are not a thing." "Are you sure he knows that?" She rolled her eyes. "Men don't flirt with me." "I do," he said before he could stop himself. Silence. He froze. She froze. He looked away quickly. "That's not what I meant." "Yes, it was," she whispered. Their eyes met. Something shifted. "Ivy," he said quietly, "tell me what you're hiding." She swallowed. "Tonight. I'll tell you everything tonight." He exhaled slowly, relief flickering across his face. "Good," he murmured. "Just don't make me wait too long." Her cheeks warmed. He stepped closer. Too close, lifting her chin gently. "And don't come home that late again," he whispered. "I can't. I don't want to worry like that." She stared at him, stunned by the honesty in his voice. "Why?" she asked. He didn't answer. Not with words, with his eyes, with the tension in his jaw, with the breath he didn't release until she stepped back. Will Ivy tell him the truth tonight? Why is Pietro losing control around her? And what is she hiding that could change everything between them? The rest of the morning felt off. Ivy moved around the penthouse doing her usual tasks, changing sheets, folding towels, wiping down counters, but nothing felt normal. Everywhere she turned, she saw last night. Pietro in the dark. Pietro saying you scared me. Pietro admitting he hadn't slept. Pietro slipping and saying I flirt with you. She replayed it all while smoothing pillowcases and organizing the fridge. Her heart was on a loop she couldn't pause. Tonight. I'll tell you everything tonight. She had promised that, and that promise sat heavy on her chest. From the hallway, she heard his voice a few times, low, steady, giving orders on the phone. He moved between his office and the living room, sometimes disappearing into his private study. She caught glimpses of him, but he didn't linger in the kitchen like usual. He was giving her space. That somehow made it worse. By late afternoon, she stood in the guest room, adjusting the clean duvet, when her phone buzzed in her back pocket. She checked it. Bakery manager. Reminder. You're on for the night shift today, 6 p.m. Close. We really need you. Her stomach tightened. Right. The bakery. She had completely forgotten. The night shift was the one that paid a little extra, the one that helped her keep up with the interest, the one she never wanted Pietro to know about. She sank onto the edge of the bed, staring at the message. If she went, she'd be out late again. Again not home. Again breaking his rules. If she didn't go, she'd fall behind, and falling behind meant late fees. Late fees meant more fear. Her phone buzzed again. Bakery manager. You're still coming, right? We're short-staffed tonight. She chewed her bottom lip. I'll tell him tomorrow, she thought, after my shift, when I have more courage. She typed back a quick yes. I'll be there and shoved the phone away like it burned. Tonight, she would work. Tomorrow, she would tell him everything. It was a terrible plan. She knew that. She did it anyway. Around 5, Ivy was in the laundry room folding fresh towels when someone leaned on the doorframe. So, Mason said, are we pretending today is normal, or are we being honest? She jumped. Do you ever walk like a normal human, or do you just appear out of nowhere like you teleported? He smirked. Only when I'm annoying people who care about my existence. She rolled her eyes. Congratulations, you've succeeded. He stepped into the room, lowering his voice. So, you and the boss? Her heart lurched. What about me and the boss? The whole building felt that tension at breakfast, he said. You could have powered Manhattan with it. Shut up, she muttered, stacking towels too aggressively. Mason watched her for a second, then tilted his head. You okay? I'm fine. That's a lie, he said casually. Want to try again? She sighed, shoulders slumping. I made a promise and I'm about to break it. To him? Yes. Mason whistled softly. Bad idea. I don't have a choice, she said. I have a shift. Bakery? He guessed. She nodded. Mason blew out a breath. You told him about it? Not yet. Ivy? I know, she groaned. Don't start. He folded his arms, leaning against the washing machine. Look, I get it. You don't want him to know you're drowning. But if you disappear tonight again, he'll be mad. She finished. He won't just be mad, Mason said. He'll be scared. And when he's scared, he gets intense. I'll leave him a note, she said, or a text, or both. Mason stared at her like she had said the dumbest thing in the world. A note, he repeated. What are you, a runaway teenager? He's not going to read a note. He's going to walk out of his office, not see you, and go straight to worst-case scenario. I'll text him, she insisted. He'll still show up at the bakery like a storm cloud, Mason said. You know that, right? She pressed a hand to her forehead. I need the money, Mason. I can't skip. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. I'm driving you, he said. You don't have to. I do, he replied. Because if the boss finds out you went alone, he'll yell at me, not at you. And I have a deep desire to stay alive. She couldn't help a tiny smile. He's not going to kill you. He might, Mason said, emotionally. At 5:45 p.m., Ivy stood in her small room, pulling on jeans and a black t-shirt for the bakery. She tied her hair into a low ponytail and shoved her phone into her pocket. She paused at her desk. A small notepad sat there next to a cheap pen. She picked it up. "Pietro, I have a shift tonight. I'll explain everything tomorrow." Her hand hovered, then dropped. He would hate that. He deserved more than a piece of paper. She left the notepad where it was and walked out instead. In the hallway, she glanced toward his office. The door was half closed, his voice low from inside. On a call. Focused. She considered knocking. She didn't. She slipped into the elevator with Mason instead. "Second time in 2 days," Mason said as the doors closed. "You sure about this?" "No," she admitted. "But I'm going anyway." "At least you're honest," he said. "He's going to explode, you know." "I'll deal with it tomorrow." Mason shook his head. "That's what you said yesterday." Pietro hung up his call and rubbed his temples. He should have felt relieved. Business was fine. Territory was stable. Meetings were done. Instead, he felt restless. He checked the time. 6:12 p.m. He expected a knock on his office door. He expected her head to peek in shyly. He expected her to say, "About last night," so he could finally ask the questions boiling in his chest. But the knock didn't come. The penthouse sounded too quiet, too empty. He waited 10 more minutes. Nothing. He stepped out into the hallway. "Ivy," he called. No answer. He checked the kitchen. Empty. Laundry room. Empty. Guest rooms. Empty. His chest tightened. Not again. He walked faster now, stopping outside her door. He hesitated for half a second, then knocked. No reply. He opened the door. The room was neat, bed made, little lamp off. No Ivy. His eyes found the desk. A notepad sat there. Blank. He stared at it for a long second. She almost left a note, he realized. Almost. His jaw clenched. He pulled out his phone and called her. Straight to voicemail. Again. Again. Nothing. He felt heat rise in his chest. The same tight, suffocating feeling from last night. He called Mason. The line picked up on the second ring. "Boss," Mason answered, a little too quickly. "Where is she?" Pietro asked. Silence. "Mason." Mason sighed. "She has a shift." "At this hour?" "At the bakery," Mason said. "Night shift. I drove her." Pietro closed his eyes for a second, anger and fear colliding in his chest. "She has a second job," he said slowly. "And you knew." "I wanted her to tell you herself," Mason replied. "She said she would tonight." "Tonight," Pietro repeated. And instead, she walked out again without a word. "She was scared," Mason said quietly. "Not of you, of needing you." That did something sharp inside him. "Location," Pietro said. "Now." Mason gave him the address. "Stay where you are," Pietro added. "You going there?" Mason asked. "Yes." "Boss, maybe. Breathe first. You're very burning city energy right now." Pietro hung up. He grabbed his coat, stepped into the private elevator, and hit the button for the garage. He didn't know exactly what he was going to say when he saw her. He only knew one thing. He was done watching her fight alone from a distance. The bakery was warm and bright, light spilling onto the sidewalk. Through the front window, customers moved slowly, picking pastries from glass displays and sipping coffee at small tables. Inside, Ivy tied her apron, hair pulled back, cheeks slightly pink from the heat of the ovens. She'd like it here, at least parts of it. Nobody cared who Pietro De Luca was. Nobody expected her to be perfect. She was just the girl who refilled the croissants and smiled at customers. She handed a cinnamon roll to a teenage girl, rang up an older man's coffee, wiped the counter between orders. Her body worked. Her mind did not stop. "You promised him tonight." Her chest squeezed. Every time the bell over the door chimed, she flinched, expecting to see him. She didn't. Time dragged. 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 8:45 p.m. She glanced at the clock and winced. He had definitely noticed she was gone by now. Her phone was in her locker in the staff room, silent, out of reach. She told herself she'd deal with it tomorrow. It didn't feel like tomorrow was close enough. At 9:06 p.m., the doorbell chimed again. She turned, smile already on her face. It died instantly. Pietro stepped inside. Black coat, dark eyes, expression unreadable. He looked wildly out of place under the warm bakery lights, sharp edges in a soft room. Her heart stopped, then raced. "Oh no," she whispered under her breath. "No, no, no." He walked toward the counter slowly, each step deliberate. He didn't look around. He didn't glance at the menu boards. He only looked at her. "Ivy," he said quietly. She gripped the edge of the counter. Hi. "You're working?" he said. "Yes." "You left without telling me." Her cheeks burned. "You were on a call. I didn't want to interrupt. I was going to tell you tomorrow." "I waited," he said simply. She blinked. "For what?" He stared at her like he couldn't believe she was really asking. "For you." The words hit harder than they should have. "You said we'd talk tonight," he continued, "but instead of knocking on my office door, you slipped out of my house and came here, again." Her throat tightened. "I had a shift." "You're exhausted," he said. "You take care of my home all day and then come here at night. When do you rest?" "When I can," she muttered. "That's not an answer. It's the truth." A timer beeped somewhere behind her. Someone called her name from the kitchen. A line of customers started to form at the far end of the counter. "I have to work," she said, voice small. "We can't do this here." "We're not doing anything," he said. "You are working yourself into the ground." Her anger flared. "I'm trying to pay my bills." "That's all. You could have told me," he whispered. "I didn't want you to see me like this," she snapped. "Flour on my face, smelling like sugar, working 2 jobs because I can't breathe otherwise." "I see you every day," he said softly, "and not once have I thought less of you." Her chest ached. Behind her, someone called again, more urgent. "Ivy, orders." She swallowed. "I really have to finish my shift." He held her gaze for a long second. "I'll wait," he said. "You don't have to." "I will wait." She stared at him. "Why?" His voice dropped, almost gentle. "Because I'm not walking out and pretending I didn't see this, and because I'm not letting you walk home alone at midnight again." Her heart squeezed. "You can't keep saving me." "I'm not saving you," he said. "I'm staying. That's different." He stepped back, giving her space behind the counter. Then he turned, walked to an empty table in the corner, sat down, took off his coat, and simply stayed. No phone in his hand, no impatience, no tapping fingers. Just a man in an expensive black coat sitting in a tiny bakery, waiting for the woman who worked there like she was the only thing on his schedule. Every time she glanced up between customers, he was still there, watching her. Not in a controlling way, not in a cold way. In a way that said, "I'm not leaving you alone in this." Her chest hurt in a way that was almost too much. By the time the last customer left and the lights dimmed for closing, Ivy removed her apron with shaky hands. She stepped outside, heart pounding. He was by the door, coat on, hands in his pockets. Still there, still waiting. For her. And she knew with a heavy, terrifying, beautiful certainty. Tonight, she wasn't going to escape this conversation. Or him. The night air was cold when Ivy stepped outside, the bakery's lights flickering off behind her. She hugged her arms around herself, breath forming a thin fog in the air. Pietro stood under the awning, hands in his coat pockets, the soft glow of the street lamp cutting a gold line across his jaw. He wasn't angry. He wasn't calm either. He looked determined. She swallowed. "You didn't have to wait out here." "I did," he said quietly. "You knew I would." He stepped toward her slowly, giving her room to back away if she wanted. She didn't. "You promised me the truth tonight," he said. Her stomach twisted. "I know. So tell me." His voice softened. "Why are you working this hard? Why hide it from me?" She looked away. "Because it's embarrassing." "Embarrassing," Pietro repeated, taking another step. "You work 2 jobs. You take care of an entire penthouse. You come home exhausted. What part of that is embarrassing?" "All of it," she whispered. His brow tightened. "Ivy," he said, lowering his voice. Look at me. She forced herself to raise her eyes. Nothing about you is embarrassing, he said. Nothing. Her throat tightened. You don't know everything. Then tell me everything. Silence pressed between them, cold but pulsing with something warm underneath. Pietro, she said, voice barely above a whisper. My life. Before the penthouse, it wasn't easy. His jaw flexed. What happened? She shook her head. Not what. Just bills, mistakes. One emergency after another. I fell behind, then more behind. And I've been clawing my way back ever since. He stared at her like he was assembling puzzle pieces. The debt, he said. Her chest constricted. It was small at first. Then the interest grew, and then I was stuck. If I miss even one payment. She trailed off. It scares me. The words seemed to hit him physically. You've been dealing with this alone, Pietro said. She nodded. For months. She nodded again. He closed his eyes briefly, as if steadying himself. Why didn't you tell me? He asked quietly. Because you're my boss, she said. Because you're Pietro De Luca. Because you have real problems, not whatever this is. I didn't want you to think I was weak or irresponsible or that I needed saving. He took a slow step toward her. You are not weak, he said, and you don't need saving, but you shouldn't drown alone. Her eyes filled instantly. There are things you don't understand, she whispered. I'm scared if I let someone help, everything will fall apart. Pietro's voice dropped. Nothing is going to fall apart. How do you know? She whispered. Because I won't let it. Her breath trembled. And what happens when you get tired? She asked. When helping me becomes inconvenient? When I'm no longer your responsibility? He moved closer, so close she could feel the warmth of his breath. You're not my responsibility, he said softly. You're someone He stopped himself. Too raw. Too soon. Ivy stepped back a little, overwhelmed. Pietro, this isn't your problem. He followed her, just one step. It became my problem the moment I realized I hadn't slept because of you. Her chest tightened painfully. He reached out, hesitating just long enough for her to pull away. She didn't. His fingers brushed her cheek. I care about you, he said, voice low. More than I should. Her breath hitched. I don't want you to be afraid, he added. Not of debt, not of long nights, not of walking home alone, not of anything. She looked down. You can't fix everything for me. I'm not trying to fix everything, he said, thumb stroking her skin gently. I'm trying to understand. Let me understand. Her lips parted. He dropped his hand only so he could take hers instead, slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. Their fingers intertwined, warm against the cold night. Tell me the rest, he said, all of it. And she did, not loudly, not dramatically. Just honestly. She told him about the hospital bill that started the spiral, the overdue rent, the high-interest loan she took because she had no choice, the second job she picked up to stay afloat, the exhaustion, the fear, the humiliation, the feeling of never being enough. He didn't interrupt once. When she finished, she wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I didn't want you to see me like this, she whispered. A mess, barely keeping it together. Pietro stepped closer again. You want to know what I see? He asked softly. Her breath trembled. What? I see someone strong, someone who didn't give up, someone who works harder than anyone I've ever met. His thumb brushed her jaw again. I see the woman I waited for at 3 a.m. because the thought of something happening to her made my chest feel like it was going to crack. She inhaled sharply. He was too close, too warm, too honest. Let me help you, he said. I don't want charity. It's not charity. Then what is it? She whispered. His voice dropped to something intimate and impossibly gentle. It's care. Her eyes softened. I don't know how to accept care. Then I'll teach you. A shaky exhale slipped from her lips. Pietro. He swallowed, gaze lowering briefly to her mouth before returning to her eyes. You said you don't want me to think you're weak, he murmured, but you're the only person I've met in years who doesn't break when life pushes them. Her lashes fluttered. And you're afraid of needing someone, he continued. But I'm afraid of losing you. She froze. Those words hit deeper than anything else he'd said tonight. I'm not going anywhere, she whispered. He exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding that breath for hours. He reached up again, fingers sliding into her hair this time, slow and careful. Good, he murmured. Because I'm not done with you. She felt something warm unfurl in her chest. You're not even close. A small, involuntary smile touched her lips. His eyes softened even more, dangerously, beautifully. He leaned in, just enough for his forehead to touch hers. Their breaths mingled. Tell me something, he whispered. What? When you came home last night, did you wish I had kissed you? Her heart nearly stopped. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her silence told him everything. He brushed the side of her face with his knuckles, slow, reverent. I thought about it all night, he admitted. About touching you, about pulling you close, about the look on your face when you said my name. Her knees weakened. Pietro, she whispered. I'm trying to go slow, he said, his breath warm against her cheek. I'm trying to do this right. She swallowed. Why? Because if I kiss you, he whispered, I won't want to stop. Her pulse pounded so hard it echoed in her ears. She closed her eyes, leaning into him. Then don't stop, she whispered, before she even realized she'd said it. He inhaled sharply, his control slipping, his hand tightening slightly in her hair. A car passed. A door slammed somewhere down the block. Reality snapped around them, and he stepped back. Just one step, but enough to make her breathe again. Not here, he said softly. Not like this. Not while your hands are still shaking. She looked down. They were. Come on, he murmured, gentler now. Let me take you home. She hesitated. Pietro, I told you. I'm not used to this. Used to what? To someone staying. He cupped her cheek again, slower this time. Get used to me, he whispered. Her breath caught. He didn't kiss her, not yet, but the promise hung in the air between them. Warm, electric, terrifying, perfect. He opened the car door for her, waited until she sat, then closed it gently. As he walked around to his side, Ivy pressed a hand to her chest, trying to calm her racing heart. Because she knew something now. Something undeniable. Pietro wasn't just breaking her walls. He was slipping inside them, and she wasn't sure she wanted him to stop. The car ride back to the penthouse was silent. Not cold, not distant, just electrified. Every few seconds, Ivy felt Pietro's eyes flick toward her, like he was checking to make sure she was still there. Her own pulse hadn't calmed since the bakery. She kept replaying his words. If I kiss you, I won't want to stop. Her hands were still trembling slightly in her lap. She tried to hide it. She failed. Pietro noticed. He gripped the steering wheel tighter, jaw tense. When they finally reached the private elevator, he placed a hand gently on her lower back, guiding her inside, but careful, like she was something breakable, like she mattered. The doors slid shut, and suddenly, they were alone in a metal box with too much tension to breathe properly. Ivy looked straight ahead. Pietro didn't. He looked at her. Quietly, unapologetically. Your hands, he said softly. She swallowed. What about them? They're still shaking. She looked down. I'm just tired, she whispered. No. His voice dipped. This is not tired. She dared to glance at him. His eyes were warm, dark, focused entirely on her. You're nervous, he said. Maybe, she admitted. Because of me? Definitely because of you. Something flickered in his expression, like her honesty hit him somewhere he couldn't defend. He breathed in slowly, You don't have to be afraid of me." "I'm not afraid," she said quickly. "I'm overwhelmed." He stepped closer, not enough to touch, enough to feel. "I'm overwhelmed too," he said, voice low. "Every time you walk into a room." The elevator dinged. Ivy nearly jumped. Pietro didn't move at all. When the doors opened, the penthouse was dark, just soft pools of light glowing from the hallway lamps. He didn't lead her to the kitchen, or the living room, or his office. He led her upstairs. She followed without a word. Her heartbeat was wild. His footsteps were steady. At the top of the stairs, he stopped, turned to her, looked at her like she was the only thing he'd been trying not to want, and failing miserably. "Ivy," he said quietly, "before we go any further, I need to say something." She held her breath. "I don't want you confused about my intentions. Not for a second. So hear me clearly." He stepped closer, slow, deliberate, overwhelming in the gentlest way. "I'm not drawn to you because you work for me," he said, "or because you live here, or because I feel responsible for you." Her pulse hammered. "I'm drawn to you," he continued softly, "because you are the one person who has made this house feel less empty. Because you look at me like I'm a man, not a name. Because every night, whether you come home at 10 or 3 in the morning, I wait." Her eyes stung. "I wait because I worry," he whispered, "and because I care, more than I should." Her throat tightened painfully. "Pietro," he held up a hand, not to stop her, but to steady himself. "I'm trying to be respectful," he said. "I'm trying to give you time to breathe. I'm trying to keep this controlled." She took one step closer. The control fractured. "I don't want you to control it," she whispered. He exhaled like her words physically broke something inside him. "You're making this very difficult," he murmured. She lifted her chin. "And you're making it very confusing." "How?" "You say you want me," she said softly, "but you keep stepping back." He stared at her for a long second. Then he took her hand. Not gently, not roughly, like a man who had reached the end of his patience with himself. He pulled her closer, close enough to feel his breath, close enough that her heart stumbled. "I step back," he whispered, "because once I start with you, I won't want to stop." Silence hung between them, thick and hot. She looked at his mouth. He saw it. His voice dropped to a whisper that felt like a touch. "Tell me you don't want this, Ivy." She didn't answer. He leaned closer. "Tell me to stop," he murmured. She didn't. His forehead touched hers. "Ivy," he breathed. Her hands slid up his chest, fingers curling into his shirt. "Don't stop," she whispered. That was all it took. His restraint snapped. He kissed her. Not cautiously. Not hesitantly. He kissed her like he had been holding himself back for months. His hand slid to her jaw, pulling her closer, angling her face exactly where he wanted it. Her fingers gripped the fabric over his heart, holding on as the world tilted. The kiss was slow at first, warm, deep, savoring her like he'd been starving. Then she kissed him back, fully, hungrily, like she had been waiting just as long. A sound left his chest, low, impossible to hide, as his other hand slid to the small of her back, pulling her flush against him. She gasped softly into his mouth. He swallowed the sound. When they finally parted, both breathing unevenly, he rested his forehead against hers again. "I knew it," he whispered. "I knew one kiss wouldn't be enough." Her lips trembled. "Then kiss me again." He did, this one deeper, slower, almost reverent. Like he wanted to memorize the shape of her mouth, the way she sighed when his thumb brushed her cheek, the way her fingers traced his jaw like she wasn't sure he was real. When they separated again, she leaned into his touch, chest rising and falling too fast. His voice was barely a whisper. "I've wanted this for so long," he admitted. Her eyes softened. "Me too." He closed his eyes briefly, like those two words unraveled him. "Ivy," he murmured, opening them again. "I need to know something." "What?" "If I pull you into my arms right now, if I hold you tonight, Will you still be here in the morning? Her heart dropped straight into her feet. Yes, she whispered. I'll be here. He let out a breath that sounded like relief, real relief. His hand cupped her cheek again, thumb sweeping gently along her skin. Then come here, he whispered. She stepped forward. He wrapped his arms around her, slowly, carefully, like she was something he cherished, not something he claimed. Her head rested against his chest. His hand slid up her back. Their breathing synced. She had never felt so safe. He had never felt so undone. After a long moment, she looked up at him. What happens now? She asked softly. He brushed a kiss to her forehead. Now, he murmured. Now we stop pretending. A flush warmed her cheeks. And tomorrow? He smiled. Soft, unguarded, the kind of smile he rarely let anyone see. Tomorrow, he said, I'm taking you on an actual date. Her breath caught. A date? Yes. His fingers tucked a loose strand of her hair behind her ear. A real one, not a hallway, not after an argument. Dinner, just us. She felt her heart swell. And after dinner? She whispered without thinking. He laughed softly, low, warm, full of something intimate. After dinner, he murmured, thumb brushing her bottom lip. I plan to kiss you again, as many times as you let me. Her pulse jumped. And after that? His eyes darkened, not with danger, but with devotion. After that, he said softly, we figure out what it means for you to be mine, and for me to be yours. She couldn't breathe. He leaned in, kissing her once more, soft, slow, promising. Ivy, he whispered against her lips. Go get some sleep. Tomorrow I want you rested for me. She smiled, cheeks flushed. Good night, Pietro. He kissed her forehead like it was something he had always wanted to do. Good night, Ivy. She turned toward her room. He watched her until the door closed. And when she disappeared behind it, Pietro pressed a hand to his chest. Because he had just crossed the line he swore he never would. And he didn't regret a single second. Pietro woke before the sun. He wasn't sure he had slept at all. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Ivy's face from the night before. Flushed, soft, warm against his hands. Her lips trembling after their kiss. Her voice whispering, I'll be here in the morning. He had replayed that moment at least 100 times. So when the first streak of daylight touched the skyline, Pietro was already in his office, staring at a blank notepad like it held the secrets of the universe. He never planned dates. He didn't date, period. Women came and went in his world, never close, never meaningful, never reaching the place Ivy had gotten to without even trying. And now he was supposed to plan a night for her, a night that meant something, a night that wouldn't scare her, a night that wouldn't overwhelm her. A night that told her quietly, you matter to me. He rubbed a hand over his jaw. This was harder than negotiating territory. A knock sounded at the door. Come in, he said without looking up. Mason slid inside, chewing gum, eyebrows already raised like he knew exactly what mental disaster he had walked into. Well, Mason said, eyeing the notepad, that's the most stressed piece of paper I've ever seen. Pietro glared. Go away. No can do. Mason plopped down in the chair across from him. I was told to report any suspicious behavior from you, and sitting alone at 7 a.m., staring at paper. Sus. Pietro sighed. I'm planning something. Planning what? Mason asked. Then his eyes widened dramatically. No, you're not. Boss, are you? Planning a date? Pietro's silence answered for him. Mason nearly fell out of the chair. This is history. This is a world event. This is... Wait, does Ivy know? She agreed, Pietro said, trying and failing to sound casual. We're going tonight. Tonight? Mason slapped his knee. We're skipping straight to the finale. There is no finale, Pietro muttered, though even he didn't believe that. Oh, if there's no finale, Mason said, then I'm not your capo. I'm your wedding planner. Pietro groaned. Mason. Boss, listen. Mason leaned forward, serious for once. You like her? Pietro didn't respond. You really like her, Mason repeated. Which means you can't just drag her to some five-star place with 1,000 forks she won't know how to hold. I wasn't planning to, Pietro said. Good, because she'd panic and you'd panic and then she'd cry and then you'd kill everyone in the restaurant. Pietro stared at him. Why are you like this? Mason shrugged. Gift from above. Pietro's lips twitched. Barely. I want it to feel safe, comfortable, something she'll enjoy. See? Mason said proudly. That right there is boyfriend behavior. Pietro froze. I'm not... Boss? Mason held up a hand. You kissed her last night. You're planning a date. You're thinking about her smile like it's a stock you invest in. That's boyfriend behavior. Pietro looked away, jaw tightening. He didn't deny it. Because he couldn't. Mason smirked. So, here's what we do. First, not too fancy. Second, somewhere quiet. Third, you gotta make her laugh at least once. She laughs all the time, Pietro muttered. Just not with me. That's because you walk around like a Greek statue that learned to speak, Mason said. Relax. Tell her something real. Women love that. Pietro didn't trust Mason's relationship advice. At all. But he trusted that Ivy deserved the best version of him he could offer. He straightened. I'll handle it. Damn right you will, Mason said, standing. Just don't mess it up. She's not like the others. Pietro didn't need to be told. He already knew. Ivy woke late, later than usual. It was the first morning in months she wasn't dragging herself out of bed for a double shift. Her body felt lighter, her mind still racing. She touched her lips unconsciously. She could still feel him, the warmth, the gentleness, the restraint he tried so hard to keep and completely lost when she asked him not to. She hid her face in her pillow and groaned. She was in deep trouble, not the bad kind. The kind that makes your stomach flutter and your chest feel too full. When she finally left her room, she half expected to see Pietro pacing in the hallway, ready to lecture her about last night. Instead, she found a note on the counter. Good morning. Rest today. I'll be back in the afternoon. P. Her heart skipped. It wasn't just the message. It was the fact that he had written it. Him. The man who never left notes for anyone. She brushed the paper with her fingers, smiling like an idiot. Today was their date, their first real date, and she had no idea how to prepare. Ivy spent the entire afternoon cleaning a kitchen that was already spotless. She rearranged cabinets, she alphabetized spices, she polished the silverware, she refolded towels. She was spiraling. At one point, she caught her reflection in the oven door and hissed, "Get a grip, it's just a date." But it wasn't. It wasn't just anything. It was Pietro. Meanwhile, upstairs in his private suite, Pietro was going through something equally ridiculous. Standing in front of his closet like a man choosing armor. Black shirt, too intense. White shirt, too formal. Sweater, too casual. Suit, too, I might be negotiating a deal over your dessert. He finally settled on a deep charcoal button-up, sleeves rolled to the elbows and dark slacks that were fitted but not too sharp. He studied himself in the mirror. Don't look terrifying, he muttered. He failed. He tried again, still failed. He ran a hand through his hair. This shouldn't be this hard. A voice came from the doorway. Looking good, boss? Pietro turned. Mason leaned on the frame, biting back a grin. You're here early, Pietro said. I'm here to make sure you don't self-destruct before you see her. I am not. Oh, you are, Mason said. But it's adorable. You're like a Doberman trying to impress a bunny. Pietro glared, but it lacked fire. Mason laughed. Relax. You've got this. Just talk to her like last night. Except maybe don't say the part where you almost lost your mind waiting for her. That's second date material. Pietro pinched the bridge of his nose. I hate you. No, you don't. Now go. At 7 p.m., Ivy waited at the bottom of the staircase in a soft navy dress, simple, elegant, flowing just enough to sway when she breathed. Pietro descended slowly, stopping halfway when he saw her. His breath caught. She blushed. "Is it too much?" "It's perfect," he said quietly, so quietly it felt intimate. He offered his hand. She took it. They rode the elevator down together, fingers intertwined, both pretending not to stare at the other too much. Outside, a black car waited. Nothing flashy, nothing intimidating. Inside, the drive was quiet, comfortable this time, warm with unsaid things. When they arrived, Ivy blinked. It wasn't a fancy restaurant. It wasn't a rooftop bar. It was a small Italian courtyard restaurant tucked between two buildings, lit with string lights, tables covered in white linen, soft music drifting in the air. "I didn't know places like this still existed," she whispered. "I asked around," he said. "Mason suggested it." She laughed. "Of course he did." They sat. Their shoulders brushed lightly. She felt electricity. Pietro was different here, softer, more open, and Ivy was different too, braver. They ordered simple dishes. They ate slowly. They talked about childhoods, books they loved, music they pretended not to like, her bakery stories, his secret dislike of expensive wine. She made him laugh. Actually laugh. It was rare and deep and beautiful. By dessert, she realized she hadn't stopped smiling for over an hour. At one point, she looked up and caught him staring, not at her face, at her smile. Her breath hitched. "What?" "You're glowing," he said simply. She covered her cheeks. "Stop." "No," he said. "I won't." The table suddenly felt very small. He reached across slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His fingers brushed hers, then slid into her hand, warm, steady, careful. They didn't speak for a long moment. They didn't need to. After dinner, Pietro didn't take her home immediately. He walked with her between the buildings, slow and calm, like he wanted to stretch the night as long as possible. At one point, Ivy stopped and leaned against a brick wall, looking up at the string lights above them. "They're pretty," she said. "Not as pretty as you," he replied before he could stop himself. She pressed a hand to her chest, breath catching. "Pietro." He stepped close. "How are you feeling?" he asked quietly. She looked up at him. Happy, nervous, safe, all at once. He swallowed. "Good. That's good." She tilted her head. "How are you feeling?" He hesitated. Then he stepped closer, one step, then another, until his hand could slide to her waist. Terrified, he whispered against her ear. She shivered. "Why?" "Because I want you," he murmured, "and I don't want to rush you, or overwhelm you, or make you think this is something casual." Her pulse raced. "It doesn't feel casual." His forehead touched hers. "Nothing about you is casual to me." She let out a trembling breath. Slowly, she lifted her hands to his chest. His eyes darkened, softened, burned. "Are you going to kiss me again?" she whispered. He nodded once. "If you want me to." She smiled, small, shy, certain. "I do." He kissed her. Not like last night, hungry and desperate. This kiss was slow, deep, full of warmth and promise. His hand slid to her waist. Hers curled behind his neck. Their bodies fit naturally, too naturally. When they finally parted, both breathless, he stayed with his forehead against hers, breathing her in. "Come home with me," he whispered. "Not because you work there, because I want to end this night with you close to me." She nodded, cheeks pink. "Okay." He exhaled in relief. They walked back to the car hand in hand. But inside, Pietro's phone vibrated. One message, a message that made his expression change. Ivy noticed instantly. "Is something wrong?" He tucked the phone away. "We'll talk when we get home," he said. But something came up. Something about your debt. Her heart dropped. "What about it?" she whispered. His jaw tightened. It's not what you think. The car door opened. The night wasn't over, not even close. The ride back to the penthouse was different from the ride to the restaurant. Earlier, the air had been full of expectation, warmth, desire. Now, it was filled with uncertainty, not fear, but the kind of silence that comes when the heart knows something important is about to happen. Ivy looked at Pietro every now and then, trying to interpret his expression. He looked calm on the surface, but the tight jaw, the hand closed on his thigh, told another story. When they reached the garage, he turned off the engine and stayed still for a few seconds. "Ivy," he said finally, "before we go upstairs, there's something you need to know." She swallowed hard. "It's about my debt." He turned his face toward her. His look wasn't harsh. It was sad, and more honest than she had ever seen. "Yes," he said, "but not in the way you think." Her heart sped up. "What do you mean?" He took a deep breath, like a man about to confess something he had been carrying for far too long. "Come upstairs with me. I don't want to talk about this here." The door had barely closed behind them when Pietro walked to the large window. He leaned his hands on the ledge, head lowered, trying to organize his thoughts. Ivy stood there, frozen near the sofa, unsure if she should give him space or step closer. "Pietro," she called softly. "You're scaring me." He turned, walked toward her slowly, as if choosing each step. "I need you to believe me," he said. "Before I say anything." She took a breath. "I believe you." He studied her for a second, as if making sure she meant it, and then, "Your debt wasn't safe. It wasn't just high interest. It was dangerous." She frowned. "Dangerous how?" "Dangerous enough that someone could take advantage of you if you missed a payment. Dangerous enough that you would never get out of it alone." She dropped her bag on the sofa. "You knew?" "I found out," he said. "I looked into it days ago. I needed to know what was hurting you so much." Her stomach twisted. "Why didn't you tell me before?" "Because I wanted to hear it from you," he said. "I wanted you to trust me enough to let me in." She ran her hand over her face, breathing deeply. "Pietro, I didn't want to be a burden." He stepped toward her instantly. "You have never been a burden." She blinked, eyes stinging. He continued, "What I'm going to tell you now might make you angry, but I'd rather have your anger than see you suffering." Her heart stopped. His chest rose and fell faster. Pietro wasn't a man who feared consequences, but now he looked like a man afraid of losing something precious. "Ivy," he said, voice low, "I paid off your debt." Silence. The world seemed to hold its breath. Ivy blinked. Once, twice. "You... what?" "I paid it," he repeated. "Every cent." She stepped back, as if needing space to process it. "Without asking me?" she whispered. "Yes," he answered, firm. "Because you were tired, exhausted, hurting. Because it was destroying you. Because you were killing yourself trying to survive." She brought her hand to her mouth. "Pietro, why?" He took a heavy breath, the kind filled with emotion he rarely allowed himself to show. "Because I care," he said. "Because you were fighting alone against something I could fix in a day. Because watching you come home late, exhausted, scared, it destroyed me too." She felt her eyes fill with hot tears. "But I should have done it alone," she said, voice trembling. "I needed to prove to myself that I was strong." Pietro stepped closer, touching her arm softly. "You are strong, stronger than most. But no one should fight a whole war without help." She shook her head. "This isn't fair. You had no obligation." "I know," he said. "But I did it because I wanted to." "So now I owe you something?" she asked, vulnerable. "You don't owe me anything." His answer was instant, firm, absolute. Her eyes burned even more. He continued, voice softer than she had ever heard. "I didn't do it as your boss. I didn't do it out of pity. I did it because watching you suffer hurts me." A deep silence. "And because I care about you. More than I should." She took a shaky breath. trying not to fall apart. I don't know how to react, she confessed, voice breaking. Then don't react now, he said, touching her face. Just listen. She closed her eyes as his hand brushed her skin. I never wanted to scare you, he murmured. I just wanted to protect you. And when I realized you were carrying all this alone, something in me broke. The tears finally fell. He wiped one away with his thumb. Ivy, he said softly, you're not alone anymore. She opened her eyes, and in that moment, that exact second, her emotional balance gave out. I'm scared, she whispered, not of the debt, but of feeling something this strong for you, of depending on you, of getting hurt. Pietro leaned in, not kissing her, just breathing the same air. I'm scared too, he said, scared of going too fast, scared of doing this wrong, scared of losing you before I even have you. The confession hit both of them at the same time. She pressed her forehead to his. He closed his eyes like that small touch was everything he had ever wanted. Pietro, she whispered, why are you doing this to me? He smiled, a small, vulnerable, beautiful smile. Because I fell in love with you, Ivy. The world stopped. She gasped, breath trembling. You fell in love. He opened his eyes. I'm trying not to scare you by saying it too soon, but it's the truth. She touched his face gently, like something precious. I feel something too, she said, voice soft as a secret. Something big, something I don't know how to handle. He placed her hand over his heart. Then handle it with me, he said. Handle us, slowly, in your way. She smiled through her tears. He leaned in closer. Closer. She closed her eyes, waiting for the kiss, but he didn't kiss her. He pressed his lips to her tear-wet cheek, a soft, respectful, loving kiss. Ivy, he murmured, tonight I don't want to confuse you. I just want you to know I'm here, for everything, through everything. She let out a tiny sob, of emotion, not sadness, and pressed herself against his chest. He wrapped his arms around her instantly, holding her tight, safe, protected. They stayed like that for a long time. No rush, no fear, no more secrets. Until she whispered against him, and now, what happens? He smiled into her hair. Now, he said, we learn how to be an us. She closed her eyes, letting those words settle into her heart. For the first time in years, she felt light. But as he held her, something in his expression shifted. He was thinking about something he hadn't told her, something important, something she needed to know before the final chapter. But not tonight. Not while she trembled in his arms. While they held each other, Pietro closed his eyes, because tomorrow he would have to tell her the whole truth. Not just how he paid the debt, but who tried to buy it before he did, and why. And that could change both their lives, forever. Ivy woke up before sunrise that morning, not because she was anxious, not because she was scared, but because, for the first time in a very long time, she woke up. Light. The room was quiet, the kind of comfortable silence that only exists when the soul finally finds rest. She spent a few seconds staring at the ceiling, remembering his words from the night before. Now we learn how to be an us. Her heart melted just thinking about it. When she got up, still in her pajamas, she opened the door quietly. And there he was, sitting on the floor, leaning against the wall, head tilted to the side, asleep. He had fallen asleep right there, waiting for her. Ivy covered her mouth with her hand, too emotional to speak. He opened his eyes slowly, blinking with that beautiful mix of sleepiness and surprise. You came, he murmured, voice low, deep, irresistibly rough. You slept here? She whispered. I didn't know if you'd need me, he said, standing up, and I wanted to stay close. The gesture hit straight into her heart. Before she could answer, he stepped closer and touched her waist, gently, as if he didn't want to disturb the softness of that morning. Good morning, he said, with a small, sincere smile. She smiled back. Good morning. He insisted so much that she let him. Watching a mafia boss clumsily making scrambled eggs, complaining about the stove while trying to be romantic at the same time, was almost comical. "I swear," she said, laughing, "it looks like you're fighting that egg." "I am," he replied, way too serious for someone holding a spatula. "It started first." She laughed so loudly he paused just to watch her, appreciating every second. "I like when you laugh like that," he said. She blushed. They ate together at the counter, him watching her more than the food, her pretending she didn't feel the warmth of his gaze. When they finished, he crossed his arms, his expression turning more serious. "There's something we still need to talk about." Her heart picked up speed. "It's about the debt?" she asked. "It's about who tried to buy it. Before I did." She swallowed hard. "Who?" He took a breath. "Someone who wasn't interested in money. Someone who was interested in you." Her brows pulled together. "Interested? How?" "He saw you in the building, saw you working, saw how kind you are. He thought he could manipulate you if he had power over your life." A chill ran through her, but Pietro immediately lifted his hand as if pulling the fear away. "Hey," he said, stepping closer. "Nothing happened. I bought it first. I didn't even let the process move forward." She exhaled in relief. "And he won't show up again," Pietro added. "I made that clear. You're not anyone's target." She touched his chest, right over where his heart beat strong. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." Pietro placed his hand over hers. "I didn't do it because you needed me to," he said. "I did it because I couldn't stand the thought of you getting hurt." The silence that followed was warm, deep, loaded with something that no longer needed hiding. "Pietro," she began, but he pulled her closer, like resisting was no longer possible. Their faces ended up inches apart. "What I'm about to say," he murmured, "I should have said before, long before." Her heart raced. He held her face with both hands. With so much tenderness her knees nearly gave out. "Ivy Bennett," he said slowly, "I want you in my life, not as an employee, not as someone I protect from a distance. I want you with me for real." Her breath caught. "I want you at my table in the morning, on my couch at night, on good days and bad ones. I want to build something with you. At your pace, your way, but I want it." Her eyes shone. "Pietro, I'm in love with you," he finished, this time without hesitation, without fear, without breaks. Completely. She felt the world warm around her. "I love you too," she said, and she had never spoken anything truer. The relief on his face was almost too beautiful to be real. He laughed, that rare, intimate laugh that belonged only to her. Then he pulled her into a kiss. A kiss full of everything they had held back for too long. Relief, desire, gratitude, hope, a beginning. It was slow, it was deep, it was final, in the best possible way. When they finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead on hers. "Then let me ask you something," he murmured. "Properly, the way I should have." He took both of her hands in his. "Ivy, will you be my girlfriend?" She laughed, a trembling, emotional, beautiful laugh. "I thought you'd never ask." "So is that a yes?" "It's a yes," she said without a single doubt. Pietro spun her in his arms and hugged her so tightly she laughed again. "My God," he murmured against her neck. "You just made me the happiest man in Manhattan." "The happiest in the world," she corrected, hugging him back. He smiled against her skin. "The happiest in the world." No exaggerated luxury, no tension, no orders, just affection. He made a point of walking beside her, listening, asking, learning how she liked to be cared for. And Ivy, for the first time in her life, learned what it felt like to be loved without needing to be strong all the time. They cooked together, watched movies, kissed in the kitchen while dinner burned, fell asleep tangled together, woke up smiling. It wasn't about glamour. It was about peace. It was about them. Weeks later, on a quiet Sunday night, they were curled up on the couch, Ivy with her head on his chest, Pietro stroking her hair in slow, gentle movements. Are you happy? He asked softly. She lifted her face to meet his eyes. She teased, pretending to think. Dating a gorgeous, strong, intelligent man who cooks terribly but tries. He raised a brow. I cook terribly, not badly. She laughed. Yes, terribly. He tilted her chin with his finger, playful. Want to know something I do very well? What? He kissed her, long, warm, full of love. When they separated, she whispered, That you do very well. He smiled, almost shy. Then he said, I want you to stay with me. Here, in this house, in this life. She smiled against his chest. I'm already here, she said. And I'm not going anywhere. He took a deep breath as if those words were the final piece he had been waiting for. And then he fully relaxed. Right there, on that couch, in that embrace, on that quiet night, two lives that once felt so distant finally became one. With affection, with softness, with love. And when she fell asleep on his chest, Pietro held her tighter and murmured, You're my home. The next morning, before breakfast, before worries, Ivy found a note on the kitchen counter, handwritten, his handwriting, curved, beautiful, unexpectedly romantic. Good morning, my girl. I just wanted you to wake up knowing that I love you. Pietro. She smiled so wide she had to hold her heart. Because that day, and every day from then on, she knew. She would never be alone again, and he would never live without her. Before you go, I'd love to ask you for a small favor. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the channel. It helps me more than you can imagine and keeps these videos coming. The link is right below the video, and if you're watching on TV, just point your phone's camera at the QR code on your screen. With this simple gesture, you support a creator like me in the most powerful way. Thank you so much, and may God bless you.